general. I don't know how much detail can you go into, like, where is this right now? Where's the Butowski thing right now? Where's, are you still filing FOIAs? Like, is this thing ever going to see a courtroom again?
Yeah, great questions. We are filing FOIAs. We're litigating those right now. In fact, something that is very, very rarely litigated, that will soon be litigated prodigiously, if that's the word, is this executive order that says you cannot use classification for the purpose of concealing government misconduct. And so they've used that, not a lot, but some in the Seth Rich case. More glaringly, though, they have used that in response to some FOIAs that I submitted about sort of surveillance of journalists, and specifically for Cheryl Atkinson. And I've been cooperating with her. She gave me an authorization for the government to release anything that they have surveilled and taken in on her. And so I served that not just on the FBI, but the NSA and the CIA. And they've come back with what's called a GLOMAR response, which means we can neither confirm nor deny, because to do so might reveal classified information. Well, guess what? It's illegal for the CIA to domestically spy on U.S. citizens. And so we're going to argue that this executive order applies. You're using classification to cover up government misconduct. So that's one angle that we're going to be litigating. But back to Seth Rich and Ed Butowski, they were basically, Ed and Matt were basically coerced into settling this thing. And they can't really talk about any of this stuff. I can, and I do. And so since I can, let me say this: Fox News is the bottom of the barrel as far as I'm concerned, because Fox News has sold out so many people on this story, including their own people. They shafted Malia Zimmerman. Once they settled everything, they cut her loose, fired her. Fox knows what happened. And because of this internal battle between Rupert as the older, more conservative one, and three of his four kids who are more liberal, they wanted to appease the establishment left, and so basically just burned their own people. But the evidence is still out there, and one way or another, we're going to get it. It's some of it actually is under seal. I can't talk about it, but for example, in Ed's case, we got into some documents that I think need to be made public, desperately need to be made public. But typical lawfare tactics: they sue you into submission, they break you financially, and then they basically force you into settling and accepting a protective order. But the information is out there, and when one way or another, it is going to come out. You asked about other litigation with Ed. Thanks to Fox and thanks to the lawfare, we had to settle everything that Ed was involved in. Fortunately, that does not apply to slander and defamation that occurs after the settlement was entered into. And so, for example, I recently sent a demand letter to CNN for a retraction because they slandered Ed again. And we're planning to use that as an opportunity to reopen this and say, okay, you're calling him a conspiracy theorist. You're accusing him of spreading false information. Here we go again. You're going to get sued again. And we're going to litigate this.
Well, and if the slander is this person is a conspiracy peddling lunatic, then where is the evidence that that proves that?
Right.
If you're putting this accusation on this person, if you're labeling this person this thing, then why can't you produce any material that would satisfy the objections that he and many, many other people have reasonably and rationally raised? Why is it the most heavily redacted botched robbery in human history?
Well, there's a couple of phrases that have become popular with CNN and Washington Post and a lot of corporate media, and that is without real evidence. That's the one that the CNN used in its story. And so, so my question would that be, well, okay, when Julian Assange basically says that he got the information from Seth Rich, that's not real evidence. And so they're accusing Ed of spreading a conspiracy theory without real evidence. Well, no, there was evidence. Now, you may disbelieve the evidence and you may say it's not credible evidence, but there was evidence. And that was only the tip of the iceberg. So that's kind of the angle that we're going to go after them on, is you're saying that there's no evidence. Well, actually, there is evidence.
And I don't know if we played this clip in a while, but I'm gonna play that clip here real quick, because this is, I believe, this is what you're talking about.
Yes, right.
He needs a miracle. In the American political lexicon, there's such a thing as the October surprise. The stuff that you're sitting on, is an October surprise in there? Do you even know what you're sitting on?
WikiLeaks never sits on material. Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material, and often very significant risks. As a 27-year-old, I works for the DNC, who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago for unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding. So
what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks, and they become concerned to see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
Pause it there for a second. Bring it back about 2-3 seconds right there.
I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
Let maybe a couple more seconds then.
To see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
But why make the suggestion about?
So we can go around the room here real quick, and for everyone who is not watching this on video, the link to this clip will be in show notes, and you can watch that for yourself. But I mean, Ty?
Yeah, and basically beyond that part of the clip, he goes on and is even more explicit about Seth Rich. So it makes it very clear that he is pointing to Seth Rich as the source of at least some of these documents that they got from the DNC. And so, you know, it's not imaginary. You know, another thing I forgot to mention, Cy Hirsch, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, you know, uncovered the My Lai massacre. And you know, he told Ed Butowski in a recorded conversation that they had information that Seth was the source of the leaks, that they knew this, and that all of his sources inside the government were confirming it. Now, Cy Hirsch kind of weaseled out of that, and when he was called on it publicly, he initially denied it, and then the audio tape came out, and then he said, "Well, I was taken out of context, and I was just trying to play with Ed Butowski and see what he knew." Well, guess what? This has largely been ignored by the media. He got deposed during the litigation between Aaron Rich and Ed Butowski. And with great reluctance, he finally admitted under oath that, yeah, that was true. That's exactly what he was getting from his sources inside of the government, is that Seth was the source of the leaks. So, you know, but that begs the question. Here's Cy Hirsch, who throughout all of his life is not afraid to take on anybody, and now he's running scared. Mm-hmm. And I hope he hears that, and I hope it offends him, because it's true. He's running scared. And the question is what is big enough and bad enough to scare Cy Hirsch?
Yeah. And I mean, to go back to the Julian Assange clip really quick. I mean, God, first of all, I really miss his interviews. Second of all, yeah, I just miss like watching new interviews of him. But yeah, I mean, and people are going to point to that as part of the ongoing smear campaign against Julian, in that he's peddling Seth Rich conspiracy theories, not taking into account the fact that he runs an outlet that has a 100% accuracy rate. So when he does when he gives these little like mannerisms and these interviews that kind of point to and indicate Seth Rich as the source, and more importantly, the fact that it was a leak, when he does that, we ought to trust him and use that as, credible evidence in building this case as well. And I mean, another thing as well is I understand that we need to get to the bottom of what happened with the Seth Rich case, but don't ask like WikiLeaks what their source for drop is, or who blew the whistle on that. I mean, that's just always something where it's like, one of the things that makes Julian and WikiLeaks so special is their commitment to protect their sources. And it's something, going back to that whole thing a couple months ago, where people were essentially saying that Trump would agree to pardon Julian if he disclosed the source of the DNC leaks, which was, first of all, probably a lie. Second of all, I mean, of course he's not going to do it, because that's the kind of integrity that he and an outlet like WikiLeaks has. So, yeah.
Well, I never saw
That's my little rant there.
I never saw anything convincing that wasn't just Dana Rohrabacher trying to get back into DC and trying to get back into the good graces of the party. I never saw any evidence that Trump himself directly communicated to Rohrabacher to put that deal on the table. But I mean, that's really neither here nor there on this. I mean, WikiLeaks put out a $20,000 reward for information leading to, the arrest of Seth Rich's murderers.
First time. And I think it's still the only time they've ever done anything like that.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, what do you think about the clip out? And we can play that next minute too, because he does go into some great detail and we can talk about it. But up to the first minute of that clip, Allie, I mean, what's your initial reaction to that? Because I don't know how long it's been since you've seen that clip. And you need to unmute, unless you're not there. And then we can go back to the clip. I don't know if I could. We'll do that then.
Something, before I forget, something I wanted to mention, Bill Binney and Larry C. Johnson have also written about another aspect of the hard evidence here. And they have shown that it was both technologically and physically impossible for this information to have been hacked from the DNC. So that rules out hack. That means your only other alternative is a leak.
Yeah. I'm not sure the exact kind of computer science jargon or all of that, but I know the thing that VIP's investigation found was that the download speeds of the emails were too fast to be obtained remotely or from a hack. They had to be downloaded onto a flash drive. So
file transfer,
right,
and download speed,
right.
Yeah.
Well, then there's that goes back to the whole classification thing. It's pretty easy to piece together some facts here. We know as recently as the last few months that Judge Boasberg in DC releases this order saying 16,000 Americans were improperly surveilled. Actually, what he said is that the FBI improperly went into the NSA database and pulled out information on these people. It's publicly known that the NSA is sucking up everything, and it's out there and it's available. So what does that tell you? Well, that tells you that whoever transmitted these files from the US to WikiLeaks, the NSA's got that information. And so I filed a FOIA for that and asked the NSA to produce all of it. And they've come back and given me the same Glomar response. Well, and this is going to come up in court, so I'll give you a preview. The problem they made is the NSA said they had moderate confidence that the Russians were responsible for hacking these things. And my argument to the court is going to be, no, you actually affirmatively knew that was not true and you lied about it. And now you're trying to use classification to cover it up. So my hope is we can get a court to force them to cough up some of this information.